Welcome everyone. Namaste. And to everyone joining wherever you are around the world, here in this moment. Of course, as we recognize when we bring ourselves really deeply into this moment, we do reconnect to the truth that actually everything is all connected. We are here together in oneness. In fact, we're in the same space of consciousness. There's no distance in this. And how simple is it to regain this essential awareness? It's not complex. It's not something we have to reach out for at all. It's as simple as pausing and engaging with ourself right here, right now. And in fact, there's something so deeply satisfying in this, isn't there? And it's quite indescribable. It's quite ironic that as a human experience, we're chasing so much, we're expending so much energy in the quest of finding satisfaction. And yet here it is. Right here, always here in the moment. In fact, it's the loss of our connectedness to being here in the moment and really deeply engaged within our essential self that causes us to imagine we need something more and sets up that perpetual cycle of chasing, looking out. And so what do we have today now, a society of doing instead of being, don't we? And in fact, this is in a way a disease. If we really look at it, most of humanity is riddled with disease, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. All of this actually arising as a result of this perpetual doing, that we have lost the art of being. We're disconnected from our natural self, our natural order, the natural order of existence. Sounds very simple, doesn't it? That's because actually fundamentally it is. And unfortunately, due to our conditioning to externalize and to keep chasing outwardly in this state of doing and doing and doing, we imagine that regaining or acquiring some sense of satisfaction requires something more complex. Somehow we're not enough, that the answers are beyond our reach, beyond our comprehension, and they're not. We are the answer. So how is it then, if we are the answer, that we seem to be so lost? It's quite ironic, isn't it? How is it then, if we are consciousness, that we're constantly unaware of this? Trying to remember this. Largely, actually, as a result of habit. We've acquired a vast array of habits that tie us into this externalizing and distraction. So most people are actually wandering. You're not present, you're wandering. You're wandering around in your mind, you're wandering out there, you're searching somewhere else for something else. And of course, all that wandering creates greater dissatisfaction, and because of the perception that one needs to find it somewhere else, one wanders even more. And so the distractions become greater and larger, perpetual, habituated. So as a society, we actually have not cultivated the art of being, the art of presence. Okay, we're starting to cultivate that more, right? Look at us all here. Obviously, you all know and understand this fundamental concept to some degree, right? And even if it seems relatively new to you, something in you gets it, because it's not complex. Something in every single one of us knows that when we just pause and come back to center, back to ourself, we regain a modicum of peace, calm, and a greater degree of satisfaction. So one of the issues, though, with all the distractions is we are literally being bombarded every single moment with distractions. That's the society we live in. And as a consequence, actually, we've been, in a way, brainwashed into this perpetual loop of distraction. And our attention is constantly pulled out. And because our attention is constantly pulled out, we've lost the art of centered awareness, or mindfulness, perhaps we could say. So most people are actually not in control of their own thoughts, their own behaviours, their own actions. Actually, a lot of what you do, you think you are in control of, but actually it's nothing more than this perpetual momentum of conditioning. Things you've been conditioned to think, to believe that you need, you must do, you must acquire, you must chase. Let alone how many things at a subconscious level are pulling you, calling you. You know, you walk down the road and suddenly go, oh, Mars bar, yes, I must get one of them. Where did that come from? Where did it come from? It didn't just appear out of thin air. How did it arise there? Have you ever really wondered, how did it arise there? How did your compulsions arise? How did your desires arise? How did all your thoughts, your ideas of what you need and what you believe arise? Where the hell did they come from? How did we get ourselves into this giant mess? Oh dear, now I'm opening up a can of worms. Let's see if it will. In the opening space, I used some words, right? I used some words, and those words created a sense of attention and direction. And so, an experience occurred, a certain state, a certain phenomenon occurred, right? Not because actually I'm outside of you, but because I'm connected with you. How does the desire for a Mars bar arise? Not because it's actually outside of you, but because it's connected within you. We literally are transceivers. So we're constantly transmitting energy and receiving energy. And actually, if we look deeply into this, they're one and the same. They're really not different. But as a manifest experience, we have a point of reference. We experience and perceive ourselves to be individual and separate. So we operate by way of subject and object. It appears as a dualistic phenomenon. It appears as inside, outside. Actually, if we really investigate this and we restore our state of attention and awareness, that perception of duality dissolves. We begin to recognize that there is no this and that we're actually not separate. It is one field. And this is how we are so profoundly impacted and disturbed on this planet, because we have created a field of constant bombardment of distractions and object-based desires and ideas. Limited conditions and ideas of what we are, how we are, what we need, what we should be, etc. So there's two things going on. One is the perpetuation of this distraction and externalizing, pulling you out of your true essence of being, and therefore losing engaged attentive awareness. That's one. And secondly, that all those distractions are actually low frequency. So as low frequency, your whole concentration field is dull. How many of you recognize that throughout your life you would have noticed at a certain point that you've become overwhelmed, as if you've been overtaken by the momentum of the world and all these distractions and everything that's pulling you out, and that coinciding with that, as if you've become overwhelmed and overlaid with all these conditions and pulled out, you become profoundly dull and agitated. That's because all of that content that one is distracted by is low vibrational content or material. It's low frequency. So in actual fact, your whole vibrational field sinks lower and lower and lower. And you begin to feel depleted. And the more depleted you feel you lack. And the more you feel you lack, the more you chase for something more to fill it up. And so it becomes this perpetual loop that you've been conditioned to think that what you need is out there. And you're so depleted in here that you go chasing more, looking elsewhere for something more. So that means then that this incredible tool that we have, this mind, which is a powerful tool, actually is turned into a dumbed down problem, basically. It's dysfunctional, largely dysfunctional. So you even look at, in that low frequency range, you're either pulled out, and so your locus, your sense of self, is out there. It's hooked onto someone else, something else. It's out there in the future. It's out there in more objects, acquiring a better status. It's out there in your perfect match, your other half. It's out. Or your locus is in there, completely swamped in all the conditions you've collected, all the ideas of what you are or what you're not. Fear-based conditions. Now, what that means is you are conditioned in a way in this perpetual distraction, either in there or out there, or both, going from in to out, which is quite exhausting. And you've lost, therefore, your own mastery. Because that momentum depletes you of your capacity to be the master of your own experience. What is required for you to be the master of your own experience is attentional control, attentional direction. What this means is your capacity to choose to give your attention to something or ignore it. It is the power of choice. Attentional direction. So mindfulness helps us restore that, largely. However, one of the issues with mindfulness is that because we still have such a strong habituated loop of these split locus points, external or mentally internal, actually, even mindfulness can keep you as that object and subject. You may gain a degree of watchfulness, of course. That is very, very important, but there's something more. In fact, the locus that everyone needs to regain is totally different. It is the axis of consciousness, or the axis of beingness. This is what I actually teach in the program, The Presence, how we can regain that axis and be connected with it, so that we establish a deeper alignment and attentional control, which is not driven by mental conditions and all this activity where even if we have a degree of awareness and witnessing, what are you watching? What the hell are you watching? Still the same old shit, isn't it? That's pretty boring. And it leaves you actually feeling as if something is still missing. You're still not getting it. So the axis of consciousness can only be encountered when we enter into a different dimension. We have a different vibrational state of being. And actually there are a variety of factors that need to occur for us to be in that axis. Why? Is because it's vibrational. So, as I pointed out, all this content that one's attention is hooked into, either mental, internal, or object, external, is low frequency. So we literally have to shift our frequency to regain conscious access. And that is why breathing and meditative practice is so important. But there's a whole lot more to it than that, because mostly the methods of meditation leave one still sitting at a kind of certain level of this awareness where you don't really get it, that absolute access. So what we've developed by way of habit, as I said, is this: we're being constantly bombarded by low frequencies. The human system is in low frequency, so it makes it very, very difficult to shift that frequency and regain that true orientation where we know ourself. We know what is. We see what is. We hear what is. We feel what is. We are what is. We experience what is. We are. No question. No searching. No seeking. No doubt. Just being. So, in order to regain this, we need to start adopting new habits, in actual fact. I go into this in quite some depth in my latest book, Awakening You. So I go through the 7 conscious habits, which actually, if you know and understand them, are the qualities of enlightened being. They are the qualities and habits that restore beingness. So one of the most simple, fundamental activities we can do is bring our attention to the breathing and bring our attention fully into the now. And it's not going to happen like that. It doesn't happen overnight. It does take perseverance. So oftentimes spiritual aspirants, seekers, they're looking for some magical bullet. They're looking for that phantasmagorical Shakti pot that's just going to blast them into it and it's done. And it's not like that. Because you are a bundle of accumulated energies as a result of your habits. It's you that is that phenomenon. That's why it's called self-realization, folks. Not other realization. So, the yogis have been pretty on the money when they've said for eons that you must cultivate this. There is work to be done. It requires perseverance, diligence. Because everything you are experiencing is the sum total result of every single moment you have occupied leading to this moment. And do you know what has created that? The sum totality of your attention and intentions. Now, your attention has either been conscious or unconscious. Where do you think most of your attention has been? When your locus is out there or in there, it's not very conscious attention. So what that means is we must recognize the necessity for cultivating present moment awareness, present moment habits. If we think of what liberation is, or deep contentment, peace, freedom, love, wholeness, oneness, being connected, being awake, whatever we want to label it. It's actually simply beingness. Yet, that simply beingness is far more complex than what the average human realizes or experiences. Because when you're in low frequency and your locus is split and operating in this way, externalized or internalized in conditioned thoughts, as I said, that frequency is very, very low. Do you know what that means? You literally are not seeing or hearing or feeling or experiencing what is as it is. You are thinking. You might see something, you might hear something, but you're not actually seeing or hearing or feeling. Now, I actually at a certain point in my life as a youth became profoundly bewildered and shocked to realise that most humanity was not in a state of seeing, hearing or feeling. Why? Because actually it is our natural makeup. We are designed to be seeing, hearing, feeling, experiencing. Yes, sure, we are also designed in a way that we can be thinking. But if we get snared in that, lost in that, we lose true seeing. And if we lose true seeing, we lose true knowing. And if we lose true knowing, we live in fear. And if we live in fear, we are confined and trapped. We are in the illusion. It is as if we are asleep. And life is profoundly dissatisfying when you are asleep. So when you are present, truly present, engaged, the axis of consciousness, notice what I'm doing? The axis of consciousness is spatial. It's not linear, it's not literal. The low frequency of all these externalized and internalized conditions keeps you in the perception of linear experiences, subject-object. And that is as if you are making life a series of nouns. You give everything a label, a definition. You want to put it in its compartment, in its right boxes, in its right place. And what happens if you put things in boxes? What if I put you in a box right now and I tape you up, package you up? You'll get mouldy and rotten. You'll die, right? We cannot exist in boxes. That's not existence. So that's why psychologically humanity feels trapped. Because that psychological phenomenon of constantly defining everything and putting everything in its compartments actually boxes you. It boxes you in. Not only does it box you in, you're boxing everyone else in. Life is a rivering. Life is a happening. If it's a rivering and a happening, it can't be actually a something. And that's why we cannot know ourself or the truth of existence unless we occupy present moment awareness. It's also why, as I commented earlier, largely humanity is actually profoundly diseased. Unwittingly, humanity has actually created a deleterious world. So all these disturbances arise as a result of us being dissociated from present moment awareness. You can actually trace every single disease and emotion of discord and conflict back to this. Now, I'm not saying as a biological being that we won't experience some forms of sickness, because we're like a forest. You know, you walk into a forest and you see the whole ecology, and sometimes the forest is riddled with fungus. The fungus comes and then the fungus goes. Same with the human, we're this whole forest in ourself. So sometimes we acquire a virus or a bacteria. It's just part of the ecology of the whole. What I'm talking about are the diseases of emotional conflict. And these all arise as a result of dissociation and disconnection from our innate self and from the natural order of ourself as part and whole and one with existence. So let's take a few moments to rest into this space of present moment awareness. And as a little footnote, don't try to get it right. Okay? Don't think that it's about getting it right. Just allow yourself to be this experience, however the experience is being for you, right here, right now. Because within this is your version in this moment of present moment awareness.